Check 1, 2. All right, here we go. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Crush Live Collins. I'm your host here, Bart Hanson, and we do this show every single Monday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. I want to welcome everybody here that might be new. I just dropped my sort of reaction YouTube video to the whole thing that obviously I was a part of on Thursday. What a weekend, just crazy. And now I got to tell you, like, the craziest thing, well, I guess it's not really crazy, but it's just like, if you don't get videos up, I mean, I knew I wasn't going to be able to get a video up until Sunday at the earliest. And then I was just like, fuck this. When I got back on Sunday, these weekends take a lot out of me anyways. I wanted to sort of kind of wait and see if there was any more sort of new information, and then gave my little take there that just dropped. So I know it just came out like half an hour ago, but if you're new to this live stream, if you ever want to submit to be on the show, you can click on the link in the description, and we read all of the emails that come in. And if you're a Crush Live Poker subscriber, you will get priority, and you'll always get a personalized response from me too as well. So we're going to get into it right here. I'll probably be talking about different stuff like in the middle, but I will be in the live chat monitoring it as always. I want to thank again moderator extraordinaire Michael G for being in there and helping out and keeping things under wraps. So yeah, let's get into it here, and we're gonna go here to our first caller. First caller here is Colin. Is that right, Colin? How's it going?
That's right. I'm good. How you doing?
Pretty good, pretty good. You got a hand for us, Colin?
Yeah, got a weird one from Casino Niagara Falls.
Ah, Casino Niagara.
2-5 game.
This is on the Canadian side, right? Not Seneca, right?
Yeah, no, that's shut down.
Yep. I went, as I said about Casino Niagara, I was actually there. First stop, Poker Road, end of 2007. Joe Seabox Company, stepson of Barry Greenstein. He wasn't allowed in the country. Amanda Leatherman, who is Daniel Aguirre's wife now, and I had to travel into Canada together by ourselves. Whole kind of crazy thing, but I liked it there.
Yeah, I've heard that story before, but yeah, it's okay. It's all right.
Yeah.
But yeah, Casino Niagara, 10-handed. There's one main villain in the hand.
Okay. What's the size of the game?
The effective stack is me.
Okay.
At 1,050.
And it's a 2-5 game?
Yeah, 2-5.
Okay. 2-5. Okay.
So I don't know if you remember the email. Should I tell my hand right now, or should we wait until the shit hits the fan?
No, yeah, just run down the hand, man.
Tell my hand?
Yep. I mean, just run down like the action of the hand and.
All right. Pre-flop action is under the gun opens to 20.
Okay.
Under the gun 1 is the main villain. He calls 20.
Okay.
Hero and MP calls 20.
With what?
Queen of diamonds, 5 of diamonds.
Queen of diamonds, 5 of diamonds?
A little bit loose, yeah. The table was playing a little bit passive, so I thought I could get away with it.
Oh, I remember. Okay, now I remember this hand because
that's why I didn't want.
No, it's all good. No, I think it's important though because it's not something that comes up all the time, but it's something that happened with me. So you make a very loose overcall with Queen 5 of diamonds now. There's a lot of pre-flop. There's a lot of pre-flop police here. I know in the live chat, but just stick with us, live chat. It'll get interesting. Okay, so you make this call. Yep.
Yeah. Cutoff calls 20 and button calls 20. Everyone else folds, so we're going 5 ways to the flop.
All right, so $100, 5 ways. Okay.
Yeah, $100 in the pot.
Yep.
The flop comes down Jack of diamonds, 10 of diamonds, 9 of clubs.
Jack of diamonds, 10 of diamonds, 9 of clubs. So you flop like a pretty big combo draw here, right?
Yeah.
Yep. Open-ended straight draw and a flush draw, right?
Yeah, you got it.
Okay.
So under the gun checks, the original raiser. Main villain bets $60. Under the gun 1. I
So
call in middle position, and then everyone else folds. So we go heads up to the turn.
so what did you was there a possibility that you were thinking about possibly raising here at some point too on the flop?
Um, I did think about raising for a second, but I mean, there's two guys behind me,
Yeah.
and the possible range that I was really putting him on is basically king queen suited, all the sets, all the suited two pair combos, and like the ace high flush draw.
Now this guy
And then
was the pre-flop raiser though, right? Too.
no,
Oh, he
he
was
was
not.
second
Oh,
act,
okay. So
so he called UTG 1.
right. You said that. My bad. So that's kind of interesting because I always like to attack the field better. This is sort of a crush live poker strategy, attacking the field better. Although I can kind of get on board with what you're saying that the field better betting. I mean, you're kind of just hoping that he just has like queen jack here, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know how many hands really bet and fold on this
Mm-hmm.
board. It's much different than if the pre-flop raiser checked and somebody bet like an 8 deuce 4 board where they could be like poking out with a small pair or betting like pocket sevens and they're just going to bet fold. So I think that I can get on board with you that I would probably just call here as well.
Yeah, and I mean, I have the two guys behind as well, right? So they can possibly have a higher flush draw.
Well, right, but
Just something to think about. But
that would be a case for sometimes actually raising to kind of clean up your draw a little bit though too, just as an aside.
okay, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Anyway, so turn comes down the 7 of clubs.
Okay. So puts a one liner out there to an 8, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. And the villain checks.
Okay.
So at this point, I'm thinking we can discount all the straights. So I'm assuming he never has king queen, and he still has probably all the sets, all the two pairs, and the ace high flush draw combos. Um, I go ahead and bet 135.
So hero bets 135, which I mean, I guess a two-third sizing would be kind of be like 180. Obviously, you got to watch your stack size. If you go 135 and he calls, the pot's going to be around 500 and you guys are going to have about 800 left. I might
Mm-hmm.
take a larger sizing here on the turn, just my gut. If in general, if I were to sometimes, have a draw and then want to bet the turn. Now, this is a little bit different though, because you sort of like play this ahead like chess. You play this
Mm-hmm.
head like chess where you think a couple moves ahead of time and you're like, all right, well, I'll bet here, add some fold equity. There's a one liner out here to a straight. And then if I whiff, I can decide whether or not most likely I am going to bet at the end, although your sort of combo of hand isn't the best to bluff. However, how often do you have an 8 here?
Um, it's like decently often.
Think so? Right, you're
It's
calling
not. It's
to his
not that
left,
crazy.
right?
It's not that well. There's how often do I have an 8,
Yeah,
and
how
how
often
often does he think I can have an 8?
Well, of course, I mean that's the whole
You know what
dance
I
that we
mean?
play, right? I mean that's the whole dance that we play in live poker. I'm just
So
saying
it's
that
no, and yeah, when you're asking that, yeah, exactly. How often do I have an 8? Not super often. It's just the suited connectors, and then the suited semi connectors, and then like maybe ace 8 suited pocket eights. That's about it.
I don't like ace 8 of diamonds, you mean?
Yeah, yeah, ace 8
Yeah.
of diamonds. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think you and I can both agree thinking about this that you don't really have a whole lot of eights, right? Calling
I
that
don't have a
stacked.
ton. No,
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, that's something to think about there. So whether or not you want to bet or check.
no,
Um,
but my thinking was at the time is I didn't think I had any fold equity on the turn there, so I was just betting for value. If I was gonna get there on the river, I was gonna get there, and then I was gonna be able to bet small for value again. And if I didn't get there, I may have just given up. So I was just keeping the options open essentially.
well, yeah, but the only thing about that though is that with one card to come, you're never gonna be ahead here against anything. Like you can sometimes I can get on board with that logic sometimes in a super multi-way pot when you have the nut draw and like you can actually bet for value with a huge draw like a 15 out type of nut draw where you're just trying to get money in the pot here. But even with a 15 out draw with one card to come, if he just has a jack or a pair, you're still a 2-1 dog. I mean, it's hold'em, right?
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
So, I mean, I don't know if we're talking about semantics or what, but that's why I think the bet is to set up a bluff if you whiff, or sometimes take your equity. So I
Yeah,
wouldn't.
but that's what I was saying though.
I thought you said bet for value.
Well, it's the bet to set up a bluff. Like, so I'm betting this size because if I am gonna bluff, I'm only repping an eighth on a brick, right? So if I'm gonna bluff, I'm gonna have to bluff over the size of the pot. So by betting small, I'm basically just setting up either I'm gonna get there and bet small for value, or I'm gonna miss brick and I'm gonna have to bet big to get him off of two pair or something like very strong like that.
So something kind of crazy happens though right now, right? So you bet 135.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah. So I bet 135,
Uh-huh.
and he's been playing slow the whole time. He tanks for a while. Somebody calls the clock on him, and he gets mad at the player who calls the clock.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, "Look, I have a real decision. Look," and he flips his hand over, so he exposes his hand, and it's King of Diamonds, King of Spades.
So the guy exposes king. By the way, he's not. By the way, he flatted pre, right? He flatted
Yeah,
next
he
act
flattered pre.
So
That's
so
crazy.
he exposes king.
Yeah,
Okay.
purposely. I don't know if he was so caught up in the moment and flustered that he just, forgot what street we were on. But yeah, he just shows his hand to the whole table. He just flips it over.
And you think he knows he's still in the hand though against you.
Yeah, no, he knows. He knows for sure.
Okay. So what does he
So
do
he has
now?
king, and then he calls.
So so 490 before we go to the river, because this story always, I mean, I know some subscribers know what I'm talking about, but there was actually a little bit of controversy. So it's 490. Obviously, you've got Queen 5 of diamonds for the podcast people. It's Jack 10 9 7. You bet the turn. This guy exposes his hand. His hand is open. You have perfect information. Frank the Tank, who actually, I think it was this summer, maybe it was last fall, but there was controversy. I don't know. It was with Phil Galfon's wife. It might have been in the fall. There was controversy about the guy that took the picture with the masseuse of him, the masseuse like sort of like rubbing his nipples. He's like a half Asian guy, half white guy. And then they fired the masseuse, if anybody knows who I'm talking about. That, I think they go by Frank the Tank. He's the guy. He was really, really drunk one time at the bike that played his hand face up against me. It was Queen Jack, and I had like pocket sixes, and the board came out like 9-7 deuce. He's like, I don't believe you. I call. And then he turned his hand face up on 9-7 deuce. I've got 6-6. I'm like, okay. Turn was like a 5. He checked. His hand still. I bet again. He called again, and then the river was like a queen, and I was like, fuck. I had to give up. Like, I mean, we were like 7,000 deep, but there was just no way that he was ever going to fold. So that's what kind of reminds me of this. All right, so we're 490, 490 to the end.
Yeah, so we're 4-9.
Yeah,
4-9 to the end.
Yeah.
The river comes out to 4 hearts, so total brick.
So 4 of hearts. So you miss everything.
I miss everything, and then villain checks. He's got his hand exposed on the table.
And you've got about just under 800, well, right around 800 left, right? Something like that.
830, yeah.
Yeah.
830.
Yeah.
And so he seems kind of, annoyed. He's like angry, but I decided jam anyways because I can see his cards.
So, right, king checks. And here's my question to you is that, because this is kind of a little sort of mental exercise on how balanced do we want to be in live poker. It's just kind of interesting because I don't know what you would have done with Jack 10 or like 9-10. Like, say, for example, you flop 2 pair, but you just called the flop. Like, you had 9-10 suited or Jack 10 suited or Jack 9, and then the turn was a 7. It's like, how often are you betting there when check 2? Maybe you'd put a little protection bet in. Let's say that you did bet with 2 pair or a flop set on the turn when it got checked to you. So now you know he has kings. You know you have the best hand. What would be your thinking here? Obviously, you're jamming here as a bluff, but what would you be your thinking to try to or you flopped a straight or some shit, Queen 8 suited. What would you be your thinking at that point?
Well, all right, let's take out the fact that he says he's going to call. He says he's putting me on ace queen. So he says that to me multiple times. He says, you have ace queen, I'm going to call. He says that to me before I did anything. I'm just jamming because I think every hand I have wants to jam.
So you're going to jam for value, right?
I'm going to jam for value.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
So would that ever make you think that you want to pull back on your misses here?
No.
Don't you think he's going to call though?
Yeah, but I mean, it doesn't really make a difference. Like I'm jamming. If I have my value hands and I have more value because I can see his cards, I have more value hands here than I have bluffs. And so I just want to do what my value wants to do. And so that's just jam. It's only ever jam. If he had not shown me his cards, um, and I thought about this like before he actually flipped them over, I probably would have just bet small if I got there with the diamonds, or I would have given up if I didn't get there. But I can see his cards now.
But
So when I
Colin, I understand that all your value wants to jam, right? But isn't there something that supersedes this, like in terms of like of what you have to think about in this hand, in the sense that he's shown his hand, and he seems like he's shown that he wants to call. So what is wrong with betting your value and just giving up on your bluffs?
um
I mean, I would think that would be
no,
like,
but well, okay, no, I understand what you're saying. But at the same time, Bart, when someone says I'm gonna call, I know you have ace queen, they're gonna say that regardless of whether they're gonna call or whether they're gonna fold. Right?
okay. Well, I mean, if you,
They
I thought that you interpreted that he was
No,
going to
I'm
call no
assuming he's
matter
gonna
what.
say the same thing regardless of what he's gonna do because he doesn't want me to jam. Obviously, he has kings, and look at the run out. Look at the board, right? He
I mean,
doesn't want me to jam.
like I said, like I've
So
only really been in this case for the way that I would approach this particular situation. I've really only been in that spot with Frank the Tank, is that I would play in an unbalanced way where I would jam my value and do more giving up on my bluff because it looks like he's going to call me. Now, if you obviously wanted to play perfectly balanced and you thought that he was calling at like the right frequencies, then sure, you could play it by theory. But so you jammed.
I
You were
jammed. Yeah.
jams. And what
But I mean,
happened?
if you look at the board, it's such a ridiculous board. What are you gonna do on this board, Bart? Say this is never gonna happen to you. You're never gonna be in this situation. But if you have kings here, and somehow like your hand gets flipped over accidentally,
Mhm.
what are you doing?
Well, I mean, if you can see my hand and I have kings here, did he have the king of diamonds? Do you remember, by the way?
Yeah, he had the king of diamonds. Yeah,
I would probably
king of
I
diamonds,
would
king of
probably
spades.
tend to overfold because I would think that someone. So the problem with now hero calling with kings is that if my opponent, if I felt he was in any way competent, he could now take hands for maximum value and polarize them that he would otherwise check back because he can see my hand. Like if you had like 10-9 and you bet for protection on the turn, that might be a hand that you would check back on the river if you couldn't see the guy's hand, right? But now you have the ability to just go buck wild.
Yeah,
So
that's what I'm
it's
saying.
tough.
Yeah,
So it's tough. So what ended up happening?
yeah, he called. He drank for like a minute and then called. So.
Well, live and learn, Colin. Live and learn.
Well, I mean, he told me he was gonna do it, you know. So obviously, I should have just listened to him.
Thank you, Colin, for the call. That was a good one.
Yeah,
I
no
didn't know
problem.
what the
Thanks,
result
bud.
was. All right, guys. Again, if you want to get on the show, you could do so by pre-submitting your hand. Click on the link in the click on the link in the description, and we will always read them all. And we usually do like 3 to 5 calls a day. We've got 4 calls lined up today, and we go every Monday at 5 p.m. And then we take the best hands, even though it's a long-standing troll, and then make them into best of videos. I'll probably make that one into a best of video too. But let's go to our next caller here, and this is Joey. What's up, Joey? Joey, you there?
Yeah, how's it going,
Hey,
Bart?
how's it going? So,
Good, good.
Joey, are you like a vlogger, or you were just sort of posting
Yeah, I started just making reels and TikToks
reels?
since
Okay.
there wasn't that much content there, and I just started this last month making more vlogs, trying to transfer the people to YouTube. Yeah.
Interesting. I've never really gotten in the TikTok streets that much. Is that I mean, I got kind of fed up with Instagram too. a little bit. I mean, I used to take like chip stack pictures and
Hmm.
all that stuff, but I've never really gotten into TikTok. Is there like a? I know that the YouTube Shorts thing is a kind of a weird thing too, because you can get a lot of views, but it doesn't really do anything for you because it's not
Um,
monetized. You know.
yeah, I just think making the shorts on YouTube is just helps so much to grow the following organically. When YouTube usually when you start off is pretty hard. Because I just started off like a month on YouTube and I already got like over 1,000. That I feel that without the shorts would make it so much longer. So yeah, it doesn't make any money. I just think it's a little extra tool to get organic people to see your account.
And what's the name of your YouTube channel?
It's Poker Babbo. That's Babbo on all the platforms.
Babbo Poker
Yeah,
Babo. Okay.
yeah. It's
Okay.
it's
Cool.
it's father in Italian, basically.
So is there a like a poker presence on TikTok?
Yeah, all of the vloggers are starting to make content more on social media, kind of like the ones I'm
Oh,
doing
okay.
too.
Cool.
And there's a few guys like Poker Yama and like a few other guys, but yeah, I think it's just becoming a way to grow the following. So like everyone's kind of trying to make content there too.
Okay. All right. Cool. All right. So you got is it a 2-5 hand? If I remember, is that
Yeah,
right?
it's 2-5 and it's just five-handed since the table is breaking down. So the rake is 1-1.
And where's this played
We're
at?
at a Hamul Casino in San Diego.
Oh, okay. Where's it?
In San Diego, it's like a Indian reservation casino.
What's it called?
Hamul,
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah,
Jamul.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Of course, I didn't know it was pronounced that way. I was calling it
I
Jamul.
think I think it's pronounced that way.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. I've never been there, but I've heard of it. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, we're just five-handed, and the rake's 1-1, and I'm in the button with 10-9 of clubs,
Okay.
and the hijack that I guess in this position would be under the gun, makes it 20, and we just call, so we go heads up to a flop.
So hijack, which is under the gun, raises to 20. Hero calls. You do have like two blinds ahead of you, right?
Yeah, small. Yeah.
So I mean, you're definitely. I mean, obviously you can do more calling, but it's short-handed. I kind of want to 3-bet this hand. How deep were you, by the
Okay.
way?
What?
How deep were you? What's the effective stacks?
1,000.
Yeah, I kind of want to 3-bet this hand.
Okay.
I mean, you're five-handed. You've got the button. I don't know. It kind of direct suited connector with some high card. I mean, sometimes call. I mean, I think I would call like in a more nine-handed configuration versus like an early position raise. You're allowed to call on the button, but I
Will
think
you make a difference if like it's nine-handed against a hijack than this situation against under the gun? Or would you just consider it the same thing?
that's actually an interesting question. I mean, according to what the chart, when you look at a chart, they just kind of lop off the front portions, meaning that I don't know. From what I remember, like looking at a six max chart, I think it's the same opening ranges as lopping off the first three positions nine-handed. I think. So
Okay.
obviously it depends on how people are playing. But yeah, it's interesting to note, like if somebody notices, like are they opening the range? I always say too, like in Texas with these multi-straddle games, I think people go way overboard because, you could be playing 6 or 7-handed and have 5 straddles, and now all of a sudden you're under the gun on the button. That certainly shouldn't be a button open range because
Hmm.
you've got 5 unknown hands behind you, right? But
Yeah.
anyways, all right, so your head's up, right? Doesn't matter.
Yeah, and
Okay.
as well, it was a pretty passive table, so I wasn't expecting the blinds to 3-bet that often. Um, to that as well. But yeah, okay, cool. And so the flop comes Jack of Diamonds, 8 of Clubs, 4 of Hearts.
Jack of diamonds, 8 of clubs, 4 of hearts. Is that right? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Yep.
And now he checks,
Okay.
and we bet 15.
So hero bets small, bets
Yeah.
15. Okay.
Yeah, definitely felt on the smaller side. I don't remember the reason I did that size in the moment. I felt maybe there's not that many draws. Just a straight draw.
I kind of like just on the surface here, I kind of like it at 2/3 ish to 3/4, and I'll
Mhm.
round off for live play. Like if the sizes are 1/3, 2/3 check, when the pot's small, I tend to go more towards like full pot when it's small because again, it has to do with absolute pot size in live poker instead of, for example, um, instead of like the actual size of the hand. So
Mhm.
in the actual percentage of the hand, excuse me. So that's kind of why I like. I would probably go 30 here, just because I think
Okay.
that you might actually get some immediate folds from some ace highs and things like that, where you might not if you go 15. But okay,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they're
So
deep too, drawn in the nuts of the back door.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Mhm.
So this turn is a six
So
of
he calls.
clubs.
He calls. I
Yeah,
assume.
yeah, sorry. Yeah, he
Oh.
calls. Turn is a six of clubs. So we have a flush draw to go with our straight draw.
By the way, I mean you're keeping him much wider. That's for sure. Where
Yeah.
once you start to take small sizing, obviously you can I think probably do more double barreling than if you take a larger sizing. I think people will sometimes chicken out though a little bit too. It's interesting. Okay, so now um you flop a mega draw, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he checks again, and I make it 40. And I
No,
did
I
have a
think
question here. Would you consider betting this turn?
yeah, I think I would go at least pot
Yeah.
for
No,
sure.
yeah.
So check hero bets 40. I just think I would put max pressure on here, get
Mm-hmm.
max fold equity. Um, I mean, I would have probably gone 30 and then gone like maybe 100, 110 and then evaluated at the end. It's always nice to have the front. There's no front door flush draw that you have to worry
No.
about him thinking that you're going to miss. You pick up the back door. Yeah, I'm going to go large here, pot to large.
If
So
the flush draw didn't come out, would you still go that same size?
Um, I don't think that you'd have to go necessarily pot. I mean, it's interesting. You might though because of the small sizing on the flop. I would
Mm-hmm.
tend to do more sort of 3/4, whatever, 2/3 the full pot too, just because you're keeping him in wider. But once you structure correctly and you pick up this type of equity, Mark Goon says, I like the small size. I assume you're talking about on the flop, maybe, and that might just be a function of him thinking that he wants to keep people in, and then he can structure correctly on the turn, which is sort of in line with theory. I think sometimes in live play, I talk about sort of getting money in a little bit early on for maximum fold equity. Maybe it's a stylistic thing, but okay. I think we can all agree. I like a larger sizing on the turn. You go 40, okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and he calls, and the river is a two of clubs, so we hit our flush.
Okay, so it calls. So now the pot's
Yeah.
150, right? All right.
I wrote 155, I think, just because the rake was smaller. But yeah,
Okay.
basically.
55. And then the river's the deuce of clubs. Is that right?
Yeah.
All right, so the river's the deuce of clubs, and now you make a backdoor flush. That's great. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he checks. I
Mm-hmm.
bet 125. He tanks a little bit and raises to 375.
Check raise to 375. Interesting. Just before we evaluate the check raise, so at this point, because it's interesting though, because you've gone so small. If I had gone larger on flop and on turn,
Mm-hmm.
it's really interesting because then you trying to figure out like what this guy has. Now you block some of the hands that might be like holding on that don't beat a jack, like nines and tens. I don't know how often in this game people are checking like jack X or overpairs or something like that, but large, and then you make the backdoor. I kind of tend to want to take almost a pot size bet too. Here, he kind of can have some other hands here too. Now you go 125, which is like, 2/3 to 3/4. It's just something of note. Like, what did you think that this guy, what kind of range did you put him on
My guess
when,
was, yeah, that he just flopped a jack and decided to just play trickier and check the moment he called on the flop and the turn. I wasn't thinking, like, because I'm blocking the straights, I have a flush myself. Maybe tens, nines. In the moment, I was just thinking it's most likely he has a jack, so he just checked to call down if there's no overcard. So I was just trying to get value since my flush is the back door, and maybe he thinks I have like 10-9 myself, or is barreling with just a straight draw that missed.
so the thing is that obviously when you're trying to figure out, so you make a backdoor flush, obviously, right? So when you're trying to figure out what is and then your opponent is now raising you, so obviously he's representing a backdoor flush here, right? I mean, I don't think he's got 5-7 that's waiting to the end to raise you. Check call check just doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
When you're looking at a backdoor flush possibilities, of course you want to look back at the distribution of the suits, and in this case here the 8 of clubs is out there, which means jack X of clubs is available. The other though interesting thing of note with your hand is that you block probably, two thick jack X of club combos that might open, which is jack 9 and jack 10 of clubs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, he can have queen jack, king jack, and ace jack. But the thing is here is that it looks like at this point, the pot is what, 655, and it's like 250 for you to call. It looks like, if I'm doing the math right.
155 plus 125,
Yeah,
so like
250.
280.
125 to 375, right? I thought you said.
The pot on the river, I think it was 155, and I bet 125.
And he made it 375, right?
He made 375. Yeah.
Right. So it's looking at 655, 250 for you to call. So, I mean, I think it's just a call. I find it like, man, at this level, it's extreme for these type of pot odds here.
Mm-hmm.
To ever consider folding here or getting 2.5 to 1, I find it, I don't know. People are saying it's under bluff, but I mean, maybe I don't love it. Mark Goon says he snap folds so fast. It just seems kind of small. Now, if you went 125 to like 500 to 600, I can start to see it, but I mean, it would be very, very hard for me. It would be very, very hard for me to fold here getting these types of pot odds. What were you thinking, caller?
That I just bet so small on the flop. I think any ace with a backdoor flush is calling.
That's true. That's definitely true. That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah, and if he has I mean, I got so many comments. That's why I wanted to share with you that they were just saying he had a set or two pairs. I just think that never happens. If he has a set or two pair, he's just raising the flop a turn. So yeah, he's just saying he has a flush himself or a bluff. And I was just thinking, if he had a bluff, you'd have to have like the naked ace of clubs, and the only one I could find myself is ace jack, and I don't think he'd do turning top into a bluff. Or maybe if he got sticky with the ace 8 but off, that wouldn't, I don't know if he's even, I mean, maybe he's raising that from the hijack, I'm just not sure. So yeah, I just couldn't find any bluffs in this spot, and all the value I just thought were flushes themselves, and I mean, there was not many lower flushes than mine with the 8 and the 6 being on board. So yeah, I just couldn't find any bluffs, and all the value just felt like stronger flushes. And just because of the small bet on the flop, I just think, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised do you think just every suited ace is calling the flop bet, even like ace 5, ace 6?
I mean, those all have backdoor straight draws. So like, if you throw the combinations in, I mean, you make a good point about, because you're keeping them wide because of the small sizing, and there's probably not many bluffs. So maybe you can talk me into a call. It's just so enticing at this level because I've seen so much wacky shit. What did you end up doing here? I mean, entice me into a fold, excuse me. What did you end up doing here?
Yeah, I do end up tank folding. I couldn't see it. I just couldn't find a bluff. And the guy was nice enough, because it's like a week later, I just showed him the video and all the comments, and he was just nice enough to tell me that he had ace queen of clubs for the nuts.
He showed you, or he told you?
He told me, so it's up to believe if he was saying the truth or not. I know the guy, I play with him often, so I'd be surprised if he lied. But yeah, he didn't show me in the moment. I just it was like a week later that I showed him the video that I sent to you that he told me. Interesting.
Yeah. No, I mean, again, that's in your shorts, right? If anyone wants to take a look at it, I mean, it's a real hand, right? Because you had it. Yeah, you listed it down. But thank you very much for the call. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Bart.
All right, so we are through 2 calls. I just want to say, Richard Talbot, I don't know if you got my my email, Richard.
Oh, yeah, I got your email.
Okay, so you're going to be last, if that's cool, because I'm going to get this other guy.
Fine.
Okay, cool.
That works.
All right, so just one thing of note. Again, I dropped my little reaction video to the whole Hustler thing, and I think I mean, I'm not shocked, but I just think that people have to understand that, I'm just sort of calling it like it is. And I feel very strongly about that video. I mean, I don't really feel that strongly either way. I definitely lean towards that I should probably not, like I said, 70-30, 75-25. I just kind of took a little bit of offense at the fact that people thought that I was somehow accusing her of cheating on the live stream. And I went back and I listened, and I'm like, what are these fucking people talking about? Like, I'm trying to describe why this is such. Am I supposed to say nothing? It never really made any sense to me. But I mean, I guess you just get it from. I mean, it is what it is, right? Like it's yeah. I just have to give a shout out. Oh, not a shout out. Oh, nice. Michael G's deleting G-Man messages. G-Man, who hasn't come in the live chat for a long time. G-Man, the market was up 2.54% today, looks like. But G-Man, of course, always whining, knowing that the market's gone down, but has never done a short in his life. All right, let's go on to our next caller here. And this is Mr. White. Hello, you're up next, sir. How's it going? W. W? I know you didn't want me to use your name, caller. W? The dude that has W on his thing. Hello? Oh, I don't know where this guy is. The guy with the W. All right. Well, I guess. Oh, there we go. Here
we go.
Mr. W.
All right, it's working.
All right, how's it going?
I was double muted, I guess.
No worries. All right, you got a hand for us?
Yeah, I got a hand.
All right, cool.
So this is it's 2550 100 four-handed at a room.
Okay, you don't want to use the name of the room, right? Is that what? That's
no,
what, right,
no.
right. Okay, that's fine. Yep.
Okay, so this couple, I don't know, table has been running since the night before. So I've had time to sleep, come back, and it's now short-handed. Started out earlier in the night as like a 10, 25, 50. And since we got down to short, action players showed up, and the 100 straddle has been on since then. So it's a little bit of a unique structure because you have the 3 blinds and then the button first to act. So I am in the small blind with ace-3 of clubs.
So you say four-handed, right? Is that right?
Yeah, four-handed.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So small blind, you're first to act.
Right? Second to act.
Oh, the button's going to be first to act.
Buttons first, yeah.
Okay.
Buttons first.
So button folds. Is that right?
Yep, button folds.
Okay.
I look down at ace-3 of clubs and just do the standard open to 300.
Hero opens to 300. So 2550. It's four-handed. So I'm sorry. Is the button the straddle this hand, or is it five-handed? Mr. W?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, you're trying to figure it out. It might be five-handed. I don't know.
It might have been five-handed for this. I'm trying to. I don't think it was definitely four-handed. There was 4 of us, so maybe the straddle.
Maybe you are
was
first.
on the button. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe you are first. Okay, so you open to 300. And how deep are you?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. The effective stacks.
We're about 20k effective.
Okay.
Okay.
So,
anyway.
Yep.
So I open to 300. Big blind folds and cutoff, I guess. 3 bets to 1400.
Small blind,
so
big
the
blind.
straddle.
Right.
Straddle
Right. Oh, yeah. Okay. We'll just put it as cutoff. It's fine. He 3 bets to how much?
1400.
1400. Okay.
And so it's back to me.
Mm-hmm.
Cutoff is a solid pro. And he's been very aggressive to this point. So just not wanting to be bullied around. And ace-3 of clubs forehand is a pretty strong hand in my opinion. Not really going to be 4-betting at a high frequency. But I am doing it probably more often than the normal person. I play pretty aggressive. So I 4-bet it to 3,400. Don't quite go 3x. I don't think with how deep we are, I'm really wanting to open to that large, wanting to pot control a little bit, even in a 4-bet pot. So I take a small 4-bet and go to 3,400.
Well, I mean, the thing, I'm going to say right off the bat that I'm, on paper, I'm not going to be unbelievably experienced thinking about this off the top being, I mean, you're in essence, what? Actually, I guess you're only 200 bigs deep. For some reason, I thought you were deeper than this. So this guy takes like a pretty large 3-bet. I mean, it's kind of on the large. I mean, it's a good sizing, I guess you could say, in position. I do remember from top section stuff that you definitely are allowed to go a little bit larger from out of position as a 4-bet. Sometimes I think we were talking about sort of like more of like a cold 4-bet. I mean, I guess my question to you off the top is hero 4-bets to 3,400. When you take this type of sizing so that the pot's going to be like 58, maybe like 61, 2,000 for him to call, right? Like, what part of his range do you think, like how much do you think he's defending here of his 3-bet range?
I think he's probably defending at least 50%, a large majority of it because of how small I went.
I mean, I would think it should be way more than that, right? In position. I mean, he's getting 3-1 in pot odds if I'm doing the math right? So, I mean, even if he folded off, plus he's got position, which is, you tend to fold out more when you're out of position, but he's in position. I would think that maybe like, I don't know, 25%, maybe, like just maybe some bluffs. You just have to understand that, and then it's kind of just like, well, is ace three suited? Is it done as a bluff? Is it done, for value? You're gonna get a lot of continues here. Nate says 90%. Yeah, people are saying 90%. Yeah, it seems like it's a lot. So it's just kind of like, yes, it's I guess you could kind of say like a mergey type of three bet. Just when you get into these situations with the small suited aces and they're kind of like blocker type hands, I feel like they don't play as well with playability as some of the direct kind of Broadway suited types of high Broadways, like queen jack suited, king queen suited, king jack suited, stuff like that, right? Because you just don't flop as many backdoors, I feel like, too. But okay, so you go to 3,400.
Yep.
Yep.
So villain calls pretty quickly. Takes about 30 seconds to make a call.
So there's one comment here I just want to bring up from Timothy Wynn. He says the 3-bet is so large that I think the hero is allowed to 4-bet smaller because he's representing a small range, but it still needs to be bigger than this. Yeah, that is interesting because you probably aren't 4-betting that much against this type of sizing too. Right. All right, so he makes this call, and we're looking at what, like maybe 6,900, something like that to the flop.
Yeah, 60, 68.50 with the dead money.
Okay, 68.50. Okay.
Yep, that's what I had.
Yep.
So the flop is the king of clubs, 5 of spades, and 2 of spades.
King of clubs, 5 of spades, 2 of spades. Of course, it's a 4-bet pot, and we know that almost every single board that is not the absolute most connected boards for the most parts, can be c-bet off for the small sizing. I mean, the frequency of c-betting in 4-bet pots is very, very high. Obviously, you flop a backdoor flush draw and a wheel draw here.
Yeah, I mean, I generally c-bet almost every single 4-bet pot. There's very rare times, unless it's just, super low connected board, like I get a 7, 8, 9.
Yep.
All diamonds,
Yep.
I'll probably check that. But something like this, I'm c-betting 100%.
I think just right off the top here too, looking ahead, I don't, obviously he doesn't have to put in the extra bet with ace king, right? Ace king off, but you are blocking ace king. And then the question then becomes, because you did go so small, how does he have offsuit king X because of your small 4-bet sizing, I guess, is what I would start to think about. Because if he doesn't, there isn't a ton of king X except, you're blocking ace king,
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think if he's going to show up with the king, I'm putting more on a suited Broadway king. I think he's probably folding out offsuit.
Uh-huh.
So I don't put him on a king very often here. So I really like this flop. I figure it's a flop that I can bet and plan on just double barreling almost all the time.
Okay. What kind of sizing did you use?
So bad habit of mine recently has been continuing to just go small in 4-bet pots.
Mm-hmm.
So I bet 1/3 at 2,200.
Why is that? I was actually thinking about going like I was even thinking about going less than that. Why is that a bad habit? Just.
Well, I think whenever I'm taking 4-bet lines, I want to, once I go to the flop, if I take a small size, I want to be more polar after that and get myself closer to a 1 SPR to jam turns.
So when you go 2,200, if he calls, you're adding 44, so it's like 11-2, and what you have, don't you have like 1 SPR, no? Just over 1 SPR?
It'll be about 1.5.
56, you're at 14. Okay, yeah, I guess, yeah. So you just, I don't know, can't you still play a 3-street game though if you go small, like 17? You could go 7, couldn't you go like 25 to 30%, 25 to 30% evaluate too? If you went 25-25, if we shape this as like 17-17, I mean, you can then play a 3-street game, as opposed to just you're saying that you just kind of put yourself in between here. You mean?
Yeah, exactly. I try and simplify my lines as much as possible. So, I generally end up taking small line or small line jam in 4-bet pots, just trying to maximize value from, like in this case, maximize from spades and doing it with my entire range.
Yeah, I just on the surface, I think that you have enough stack depth where you can take your value hands across 3 streets very easily. Obviously, 4-bet pots are very, very extreme, right? I like to go smaller so that I have the ability to play a 3-street game at this stack depth instead of just wanting to play a 2-street game. It seems like you got about 14,000 left with about 11K, so it's a little bit on the kind of on the strange. It's a little bit on, if you get called and you went like say 3,000 on the turn, then the pot would be like 20 and you'd have about 8. And
Right.
3,000 would be a very, very small bet. So you still might have a little bit of maneuverability. Okay, so you go 2,200.
Yep.
Uh-huh.
Villain thinks for about a minute and then makes the call.
Okay. So now we're at like 11-2-ish.
Yep, 11-2-ish.
Yep, okay.
All right, so turn is the 7 of diamonds.
Interesting. Interesting in the sense that obviously you don't pick up any equity, but I mean, it's a fairly large brick, right?
Yeah, exactly. And, I don't know what was going through my head at the time. I feel like in hindsight, like I feel like I end up checking here, but I feel like I need to continue because I'm always going to be continuing for the most part with aces, ace, king, kings, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up taking a check line, which I don't hate because I'm wanting to realize what equity I have. But I think in general, I need to be double barreling here, which was my original plan, and I didn't follow through.
This is really interesting too because of the sort of handcuffing SPR here now. It's very, very hard unless you were, like I said, again, go like 3,000 where he's going to be defending. Because if you go 3,000 here to try to make it look like you can possibly set up a shove, right? If you go 3, the pot will be like 17 and you guys will have, something like 10 left. But if you do go 3, he still has to continue with all pairs probably, I would think. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
not
if
just king
small,
X. Yeah.
I don't think he's going to be folding, 8s through queens.
Yeah. Yeah, it's it's really weird at 1.3. I don't know. I mean, it would be interesting to see what a solver output would say because I don't know if that sizing would be chosen necessarily all the time. But okay, so you check. Uh-huh.
And villain again takes about 30 seconds to a minute and checks behind.
Okay.
And the river is the ace of hearts.
River, ace of hearts. Okay. Yep.
Yeah, and so now I'm in a weird spot where I pick up value and I'm not at the top of my range when I would like to be.
Mm-hmm.
So the sizing is weird because I feel like if I, jam or take a larger sizing, it's just a weird stack depth behind. And
Sure.
I'm not sure what I can get to call me at that point that is worse.
I mean, I think that your hand probably wants a blockish type of sizing that you might make with some bluffs that you did not bet. If we got here, say you had like a queen jack of clubs, right? Something like that. Wouldn't you want to take like a block type of bluff sizing here? Like 3,000 to 4,000-ish, something like that?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just such a good card for my range. So, having all the aces, all the kings, all the ace king.
Also, too, like
again,
we talk about like probably ace king has to be bet off at a certain frequency from your opponent. You block ace king.
Right.
You're blocking the ace X wheel draws that get run into here, like ace 4 and aces up and ace 5 and ace 2. So you can do all the combos. So that's what I kind of feel like. I feel like you want to give this guy. This is definitely not a polarizing situation. You want to give this guy a price where you might think about what you might do with some bluffs here too.
Yeah, right. So I ended up betting 4,500, kind of just targeting suited king X hands, hoping for him to be non-believing with the spades missing.
Yeah, some people are saying I check and bluff catch. I don't know. I don't know if like 9s, 10s, jacks, queens are turning their hand into a bluff here. Really on this one. So you say you go 4,500?
Right. Yeah, and I felt like against this specific opponent, I needed to bet something because he was aggressive enough that he would turn a lot of his hands into all-in bluffs and just put me all in.
Over the top of your bet?
No, if I check. So if I check, I think it's very likely he ends up jamming.
Well, that's funny because then you probably would want. So you're saying that you think he turns too many hands into bluffs.
Yeah, I think he's aggressive enough. So the issue that I had with it was he's a tricky player. I've seen him very often, flat with kings, aces, etc. So I felt like if I check and he jams,
Mm-hmm.
I have a lot better hands that I could take this line with to call off a jam than a weak ace. But at the same time,
do you though? Like, what better hands do you have as played?
Well, I think as played, I'm gonna have. I mean, it's tough to say. Whenever I check the turn, I really cap my range, so I'm not really gonna show up with kings. I could show up with ace king occasionally. I won't have aces.
I mean, I guess you could have like ace queen or ace jack, but I mean,
right.
It's kind of the same thing, right? I mean,
yeah, they're equivalent. I think ace queen getting jammed on is the same value as ace three because we're bluff catching.
Well, I just my gut reaction is if you think that he is way too aggressive. I mean, at first I was thinking block smaller than what you did. If you're going to make a deviation where you think that he turns too many hands into bluffs, then I can get on board with checking and calling. It's just like how often you get into 4-bet pots. You know what I mean? It's not something that's super, super common. So it's not a line that we can continue to run over and over again. So even if a guy is aggressive, it's like, well, have you been in these similar situations with this guy before? But okay, so you go 4,500.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Villain tanks for about a minute again, and then jams over top.
Jesus. Jams?
Yeah, it goes all in.
So what kind of pot odds are you getting now? Say 19?
Close to 4-1.
So you started on the river with like what 14,000. So now you have about 10,000 left. It was like 16 to 1. So is that right? Yeah, 16, 20, and they jam. It's like 30, 40. 10 to call, right? 30, 10 to call, something like that.
Yeah.
30, 10K to call. That's interesting. Because what does the ace really change? I mean, I guess if he was checking back ace king on the turn, is he ever allowed to jam like ace 5 here as played? I'm just kind of thinking out loud here.
I think ace 5 could jam, but it's tough to say because I don't really know how often he's going to show up with ace 5. I feel like this player in particular, ace 5, he'd probably 5-bet.
He'd probably 5-bet, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, that's interesting because it's a lot of money, right? I mean, in real time, it's a lot of money.
Yes. Yeah.
And then I'm just trying to think about, excuse me, just trying to think about the value that gets here like this. If ace king is checked back sometimes, I feel like if I was him, I would want to take a very small reverse block sizing on the turn to kind of protect the other hands that I'm floating with. But, who knows? And then ace, I mean, he made it so small. I'm just trying to think of any aces up that might get here. Is there ever no, you have clubs, so he can't have backdoor clubs. So the value is just what, like slow played sets.
Yeah, exactly.
Ace 5 and ace deuce, but then he has to turn something into a bluff here. I mean, I would say it's a fairly underbluffed. It's probably a fairly underbluffed spot, right?
Right. Yeah, and I went into the tank and I was trying to find bluffs that he could have. Like I could potentially see him showing up with kings, ace king, and that's really it for value that I could see him jamming. I don't think he's really going to show up with 7s or 5s or deuces that often. So he's repping such a narrow range.
Yes, I mean,
jamming over the top.
And I do agree with you. It's definitely a narrow range, but then you kind of bring it back to it's live poker, and these spots are very, very under bluffed, way less than what would be bluffed. It's interesting because I don't know. This is why sometimes using computer aid in these types of spots is very interesting because I don't know what should be bluffed here from him in this spot. Maybe a hand like 5-6 suited, something like that. You know what I mean? But just trying to would it be better for him to what then you have to get down to like what is supposed to call an optimal, right? Like he wants to block the hands that are supposed to call. So I don't know off the top of my head. Yeah, it's a very, very close spot. What did you end up doing here?
Yeah, so I ended up, I was trying to think of what bluffs he could have, and I kind of came to the conclusion that if I'm going to call, he has to be turning middle pocket pairs into bluffs like eights, nines, tens that floated flop, check back turn. And I just didn't give him credit for doing that. Which in the moment, and maybe it's a lot of money, and I let that play into the factor too. But
Mm-hmm.
I ended up folding very reluctantly. Like
Yeah.
I was getting a great price, and I really, gut was saying call. But I ended up,
I think it's
can't
pretty
find a bluff.
close. I think it's
Yeah.
pretty close. When did you find out what he had?
Yeah, he after I folded pretty quickly, started smiling and flipped over pocket eights.
Pocket eights. Wow. So villain turns 8-8 into a bluff. Wow. That's
Which I feel like it's a maniac bluff. But I mean, if he's capable of turning those into bluffs and jamming, I think I just have to call every time.
Yeah, and then also too, I wonder at what size. Again, at what size your sizing is a little bit in between. At what size is he forced to call with that hand instead of turning into a bluff? Like if you went say 3,500 or 2,500 or something like that, where you're giving yourself a good price on some sort of suited Broadway that's missed.
Yeah,
because I don't think you have King X here as played. You know what I mean?
No,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna bet King X on the
Yeah.
river.
Yeah. So, that's an interesting one.
Yeah,
very
I don't know.
close.
I think back to the bet on the river, and I don't know, maybe with how thinking back, and I'm trying not to be results oriented, but I kind of like a check call and just bluff catch
Check call or bet call if this guy's capable of this shit, right?
Yeah. The other part of that is looking into bet calling as well. So, dude's he's very good pro. Been playing with him a decent amount recently. So I haven't seen him run a bluff and get caught.
Yeah, I
So,
mean, sometimes when you're playing against a good pro, though, too, and you might have said that in the beginning, that you do want to take, in general, I'm not a huge fan of check calling the river at live, no limit, but that when you're playing against somebody good, you want to have some hands that you're checking to check call. So that a good player can't pick up on the fact that you're giving up, and you're protected when you check, too. So you have to take that into consideration. But I appreciate the call, Mr. White.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you, Bart.
All right, thanks a lot. All right. Let's move on here to our last caller. Richard's been pretty patient. Hello, Richard. You're up last. Hello. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, Bart. How are you, buddy?
Pretty good. Pretty good. You got a hand for us here?
Yeah. So I'm a recreational player. Been playing a long time, so forgive me if I don't get all the up-to-date verbiage of ranges.
No worries, man.
Fun stuff. So I was at the Club 52 in Melbourne, Florida.
Where is Melbourne, Florida, by the way?
Melbourne, Florida is the Cape where they launch shuttles and stuff.
So is that on the East Coast?
Yeah, it's on the Atlantic side, right off. Yeah.
So you guys didn't get hit by the hurricane?
No. We're on the Atlantic side,
right.
So it really weathered itself down to like a tropical storm, maybe like 50, 60 mile an hour wind. So it was really like dulled down by the time it got to.
Have you lived in Florida for a long time?
I just moved here in September.
Oh, okay. Because I usually like to keep up with the news on this type of stuff, and the whole Hustler thing kept me out of the news. So I'm kind of embarrassed that I don't really know the amount of damage.
The bottom line is, your thoughts and prayers out to the people in Fort Myers. They got crushed.
Right. I remember
they really got stomped, and so any relief or anything anybody can do out there is definitely needed.
Like the hurricane that I remember from Florida, I'm dating myself, and I want to say it's 1992, was Hurricane Andrew, of course, which hit Homestead, Florida. So I'm kind of wondering if this one did as much damage as what I saw out of Homestead 30 years ago.
I don't watch a lot of news, but I know it hit as a Category 4, so that's 130 plus winds mile an hour. So that tears apart everything, and flooding with the ocean coming in and stuff. So again,
storm surge, man. Oof.
Yeah, the storm surge. Yeah, correct.
Crazy. Yeah, all right. So Melbourne, Florida, and
Melbourne, Florida. It's an old dog track. I went there to play PLO, so I had PLO money in my pocket. I'm a rec player, and they had a promotion that day: $1,200 every half an hour. For high hand, winner of the high hand gets $500. The rest of the table gets $100. So it packed the place.
Okay.
but there was no PLO because it was a hold'em promotion. So I sit down at 2-5, match the stack, and eventually some really big stacks, and I'm winning. So I change it up because there was a lot of scared money at the table, I felt like. So I started just really being aggressive and being wide with my raises pre-flop to try to create action with some it's 8-handed. So it was like 6 of the players were scared money, and I didn't even think could afford to have the chips they had in front of them.
Mm-hmm.
But there was one good player. So I just opened up my range and started going 125 every time I raised. So middle position to the button. If I'm coming in, I'm entering the pot for 125.
Jesus. And how deep are you?
I had 1,000 in front of me.
Jeez. 125 kind of sounds like a Texas game.
So it was like late. It was late in the night. Yeah. It was late in the night, right? So the stacks were really big. But nobody wanted to gamble. And it was like they were all hanging on to this money like it was their rent money or something. And I'm like, well, okay, I'm about to change this, because there was one player that was a good player. He might have been a pro, but he definitely was a guy that he 3-bet me a couple of times when I made it 125 and I laid it down. So I just opened it up, right? I just decided let's get some blood out here. So
okay.
So there's 3 callers for $5. I make it 125 on the button with king of clubs, 10 of diamonds.
125 with king of clubs, 10 of diamonds. But by the way, even if there weren't limpers, you would have made it 125.
Correct. Which I was doing. And here's how you know they're bad players at the table. This is a sign for, and like maybe this is old school, but when people complain about how much you bet, they're bad players. Like, what do you mean? This is no limit. I can bet whatever I want. Like, what's the problem? But I literally had people like, why are you always making 125? Like, you're going to go broke and stuff like that. And to me, that's like you're giving away the fact you can't afford to lose the money in front of you.
Well, and I just want to, I want to play devil's advocate with you, Rich. I mean, that can certainly work, at tables that don't know how to counter that. Theoretically, the reason why you don't want to make it so large, of course, in no limit here, and probably where like 25 or 30 would accomplish the same thing, is that you're actually risking too much money to win too little. Meaning that if, let's say you were opening 30% of your hands at 125, the rest of the table can literally probably just play aces and kings and they'll show a profit against you.
Right. But they're all bad players, so they're not 3-betting me with anything, right? They're not making me pay for anything.
Well, they don't even have to, but they don't have to 3-bet a wide range. They can just take like aces and kings and 3-bet,
Yeah, they're bad players. I mean, when you see what happens, right? When I get 5 callers to the flop, right? Like, why? How? They're just all bad players.
Okay, so you go to 125 on the button.
Yeah.
Yep.
I go to 125 on the button, and I get 5 ways to the flop.
5 ways?
5 ways.
So what is
calls, big blind calls, villain calls,
and they're not like much deeper than like 1,000, right?
No. This is match of stack. Everybody had like 3,000 and 4,000 in front of them, and the person that I end up in the hand with, I had her covered for roughly $6,400 because I had everyone at the table covered.
Oh, so I thought that you said it was 1,000 effective. Is it maybe only 1,000 with the guy that's going?
No, it was a match the stack. So you can, at the beginning of the day when they open, you buy in for 1,000, but as the night goes along, you can come in with whatever anybody has.
Okay.
So it's a match the stack.
So I'm going to put like 5,000 effective then. Something like that. Okay. All right. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, king 10 of diamonds, small blind calls, big blind. So there's 5 ways to the flop. Flop comes king of spades, jack of diamonds, 9 of diamonds.
King 10 of diamonds or king 10 offsuit? Sorry to get in the details.
King 10 offsuit.
Okay.
So king of clubs, 10 of diamonds.
Got it. Okay.
And so the flop comes king of spades, jack of diamonds, 9 of diamonds.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So I flop top pair with
straight draw,
a gut shot, and a backdoor diamonds.
Yep, you do.
So that's an okay flop for me. It definitely hits me more than it hits anybody, but it checks through to me. I bet 235, and this just tells you how bad the table is. I get 1 caller.
Remember? Do you remember the guy who called? Like where he was from? Like not where, like position.
She's. Oh,
She.
what position?
Yeah.
Middle position.
Okay.
Wasn't one of the blinds. Was middle position.
Okay. So now you put in 470. It looks like the pot maybe like 11, right around 1200. Just one thing about the flop, I would say here too, and this it just reminds me like Texas games, right? So if you were sort of in a more traditional game, I would say, in the sense that maybe people weren't that wide. I mean, it's insane, right? That all these people would call. I would consider checking back some of the time here because this does hit like a lot of limpers and a lot of field callers and things like that. And to be honest with you, I might check back here a lot. Now, with that being said, the lower stakes that you go or the looser the people are, the more you just actually want to get value early. And I actually don't mind a small bet. I mean, it's a little bit extreme when there's like 5-way action here with King 10. But if you're not, if people are not playing super, super aggressively post flop and they're just sort of playing off their hand and they're never going to raise because there's a straight out there, then that's really good for you, especially in position to manipulate the pot. So I can get on board with your pot, your bet.
Yeah, heads up, I like a check better, but with that many people, I looked at it like 235, hopefully thins the crowd a little bit, right?
Well, you just want to get value too, you know?
Yeah, I want to get value. But at the same time, I would really like some of these people to fold, like pocket threes fold, somebody, those hands all to go away.
I thought that somebody in the chat was saying that there was 850. I thought it was 5 ways. I don't know if it was 6 ways to the flop, or was it 6 ways or 5 ways to the flop? Do you remember? 5 ways, yeah. Okay, so I'm right. 7.
Yeah, big, okay. Small blind, big blind, the villain, one more person, and me.
Okay. All right, so we're heads up with this lady. Okay, move to the turn. Mm-hmm.
Yep, and the turn is an 8 of diamonds.
So king of spades, jack of diamonds, 9 of diamonds, 8 of diamonds. Here has king of clubs, 10 of diamonds. You turn in a straight flush draw.
Yep.
And you've got the 10 of diamonds in your hand for like sort of the one card flush draw here too. Okay, does she check to you?
She looks at the 8. She like shakes her head once to the right or the left, and then puts out a scared bet of 300. And I immediately just said, "That's the scare." She's scared shitless right now because she's got a lot of money in front of her. And I'm like, okay. And I thought a minute. I'm like, well, the 8 helped her, or the 8 didn't help her, or what? Does she have a rag? I felt like she has some kind of raggedy 2 pair, maybe bottom set. And I'm like, so I decided to put her to the test when she bet 300 and I raised to 1370.
Let me just ask you a question here first, okay?
Okay.
So what if she checked? What would you have done?
If she checks, I take the free card.
Okay, I actually like.
Because she could be laying a trap. She could have diamonds.
Yes,
she could have a lot of hands that really mess me up. And if she wouldn't, even if she shakes her head and checks, I'm still wanting the free card. But when she bets 300, I'm like, well, what does that bet do? There's over 1,200 in the pot. Like, what are you thinking here?
I like that. I really do like
that's just a scared bet. That's asking to get raised.
Well, here's the thing. Let's go back to if she checked. I mean, I think this is kind of important here too, in the sense. I mean, I know what you're trying to do. We'll talk about that in a second. But I think that this was a really good spot for you to check back if she checks, because when you take a look at what her sort of flop calling range is, and now the turn comes out, obviously Queen 10 is already out there, but front door diamonds, and you're behind already like to King Queen, unless these players are so bad where you can make a case that like she's going to continue to call here with like Queen Jack or Jack 10 on the turn, or like has King 4 suited or something like that. In general, I would actually like a check back on the turn. So let's see, talk about what you're doing here. So what you're saying is that you sort of just want to put, you're playing. I put you up as 5,000 effective. Maybe you're a little bit deeper. I don't know, but you just think it's a scared bet that she doesn't have a flush. Did you ever think she's leading out here with a flush?
No, because she would have check raised me on the flop if she's got a draw maybe, or to me also, I take that back. If she's got a flush, she's not going to bet 300.
Okay.
She's going to bet 800 or the pot, or why just bet 300 if you have a flush?
Do you get on board with me though that she's probably not like check calling like King Queen here on the turn?
Yes.
Yes. So she probably has at least two pair plus, I would think. I mean, it's just gutsy. It's kind of, I mean, I know you have a boatload of equity and stuff, and it's just kind of gutsy. I mean, obviously, it sounds like you are traditional. I don't know if you're a little bit of an older guy or what, but it sounds to me like you like to splash around, right? Like you're splashing around here.
I'm a recreational player. Yeah. And also, because she put the scared bet on her, I'm also setting up to put her to the test.
Sure. Sure, I get that. I'm just going to put a counter to you, though, Rich, and maybe they're not reacting to you correctly. Just by the way that you're sort of talking about the hand and your enthusiasm and making it 125, it kind of sounds to me like you're kind of a laggy player. And my question would be then, like, are these people bet folding like two pair to you, or are they like, I'm not going to fold to this guy, he's a fucking maniac? You know what I
mean? That's what I was trying to induce, was they're not going to fold to me because I'm a maniac. And I'm really not. I know how to hit a lot of gas. I know how to stomp a lot of brake. I'm not this maniac player. Most of the time I'm not. It's just I saw scared money. I wanted to gamble. And it's like, okay, let's stomp some gas. Let's see what happens. I've been playing all day. I was ahead. I was like 1,500 ahead. And I'm like, okay, let's gamble.
So did she call?
Oh, yeah, she called.
Oh, okay. So she calls. And now, boy, I don't know if you think maybe she still has two pair here. But again, the 8 doesn't change a whole lot, though, too, in terms of like two pair. It's interesting that she takes this lead on the turn, because a lot of times, like, you won't see people who are playing against like loose, aggressive players like lead with a hand like king queen with the queen of diamonds. Now all of a sudden, something like that.
That's why it was such a scared bet. She just didn't know what to do. She was really kind of an experienced player and needs to. She really needs to find her game. She's definitely she's a losing player too. I can see it from the couple of times I've played with her. She's not going to be a winning player.
So according to my calculation here for some 27, it looks like it's right under 4,000 now. Now, if you guys started with 5,000, maybe you started like a little bit deeper, but you've got at least 3,000 left. I don't know if you have about one pot size bet or what in the stack.
Yeah, I know my last bet was 4,500 on the river. I know that.
Okay, so maybe she's 5.5 effective. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll edit that out I'm going to edit that out for the best of, because believe me, this is going to make a best of. All right, so what's the river here?
The river is a queen of spades.
Queen of spades. So you make a straight.
Yep, and I make the straight. Yeah. I make the good end of the straight. So.
The good end of the straight as opposed to what?
Well, no, I don't make the good end of the straight. No, I don't make the good end of the straight.
Well, ace 10 beats you, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, that's just a gut shot. Any 10 is a straight. I wouldn't say that's the bad end of a straight, but yeah. So, okay. So you make a straight, yeah.
And this is the part of the hand I almost just threw up because I really made a mistake. So she checks and she's scared, and I know my straight is good, and so I jam.
So before you tell us what happens here, though, so you think your straight is good because you don't think she has a flush, right?
Yeah.
So
I know she doesn't have a flush. She would bet into me.
So the only thing that I will say to you, Rich, I mean, I know you're a recreational player, just to start thinking about this about your own image and stuff. Like, if you were gonna bluff at the end here, because you wanted to bluff her off because you thought that she was scared or something like that, and now you back into what you think is the best hand, and you still think she's scared, would you ever consider sizing down to get called?
No, absolutely. When I jammed, I was sick to my stomach. I was like, this is actually a problem in my game.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm pretty good at not trying to outplay people and get to the river, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when I get to the river with what I know is the best hand, I more than I should overbet it. And when I shoved and she goes in the tank, I was so upset with myself. I was like, son of a bitch. I could have put 2,000 out there. I could have put, if I don't get paid here, like, what was I thinking? I hated this bet.
I personally, Rich, I mean, you seem to think that you have a really, really good read. I still think she might have some flushes here too, which would again also lend itself to probably a smaller bet being more efficient, because then when you go larger,
she's just a bad player, and just watching her, she's too predictable, right? she's just a very predictable player. And so I'm playing the player on this hand.
Right, but what if she had like 5-6 of diamonds and bet the turn and you raised her and she called? Like, you don't think she has 5-6 of diamonds here?
Then I pay her off and I pull out more money.
Well, or you would give her your money. You gave her your money here.
Yeah. I had a read on her. I just had a read on her. She just looked scared.
All right, so you jam. What happens?
Well, she goes in the tank for 3 or 4 minutes, and I'm hating myself. But then she tank calls.
Uh-oh.
And so the straight, and she rolled over Jack 8.
What?
Yeah, she rolled over. That's just how bad this game was.
Oh my God.
Yeah, she rolled over Jack 8.
Wow, that's incredible value, Rich.
Oh yeah, I went in the bathroom and did a dance.
But I have to say, though, to take away from this, though, too, it seems like you are correct in the sense of that these people, like, they're not going to believe you because you're splashing around. So I would go back to, I don't know if you heard, I think it was the first caller or something like that, or one of these guys where I was like, well, if they call you a Jack 8 and they're going to call you down with like bottom 2, then I think it would be a huge mistake to bluff your entire stack if the river was a deuce, because she's going to call you a Jack 8. So,
oh yeah,
right? Yeah. So like, okay, if you improve and you make your hand, then you could jam super thin. But then if you're gonna bet no matter what, you gotta wait for the river card and try to figure out what the hell you're gonna do, right?
That's a great problem. That's a great point, Bart, because I like to have fun. I'm a rec player. I like action.
Yeah, that's all good.
And you're right there. I mean, the whole idea behind. Yeah, I should. If I don't get there on the river, I should definitely just check and just see where and hope I'm a winner.
It's just one of these things where like somebody calls you. I mean, it's not like you just called the turn. You raised the turn, she called, and it's like, wow, like maybe she's holding on to something. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
something like that.
You're definitely right about that. I do see where I have found the felt a few times, thinking I'm good when I'm not.
No problem, Rich. I really appreciate it. Thank you very, very much for the call. It
was
enjoyable.
Thanks, Bart.
All right, awesome.
Yeah,
so I'm going to try to do something here, guys, on the fly. I have been getting so many texts and all this kind of shit. So let me try to do something here, because I have not looked at, see if I can do this. I have not looked at my YouTube. So if I can do this on the fly here, new screen capture. I've not looked at my YouTube, and I just think that maybe this video is just going crazy, like insane. Let's see if I can get this up. All right. By the way, I don't know if like I was talking about, like if anybody caught it, but I did post up finally posted up. Got a chance to post up the my reaction video from obviously what happened. I mean, that's fucking legendary, right? Like I don't know how I keep, like I'm only an occasional commentator over in Hustler Casino Live. I don't know how I keep getting involved in this stuff. It's just insane. Wow, look at that. That's record breaking for me. All right, let me see if I can share that with you. That's crazy. That is crazy. 600 comments? Holy shit. 25,000. You know what's funny is, like, I thought that I was going to be too late for this. I actually thought that I was going to be too late. Well, I realized I can do that. I thought I was going to be way, way too late because everybody and their mother had done all this shit. And I was like, sometimes, like, these things are a little bit hit or miss sometimes, where, like, if you don't get it up, like, early on, people beat you to it. And then, like, I've spent a lot of time on this shit before. Let me take a look at this first hour click through rate. Wow, that's record. That's insane. 25%. People, you know, they beat you to the shit. They do it a lot, and then it's just like over, right? Like you don't get a chance to, you don't get a chance to do it, and like Jonathan Little beat you to it, or Solve for Why guys beat you to it. Doug Polk, he said that it was his record breaking. He's the most views ever. It's just crazy. But again, I mean, just as a takeaway, for right now, I don't really, I would have to see some more evidence really to make me think that anything was really going on. Although I absolutely thought something was going on, or I thought that there was a very, very high chance at the time that the hand was not straight. So I'm not going to defend Garrett. Like, I think he's in a really tough spot now, right? Like, I mean, he's like the biggest winner in all live streams, and he doesn't really, I haven't seen anything unless he's got some other, info. I was fully expecting him to make a statement being like, hey, I was heated in the moment, and maybe I'll, if I'll take a look at it, and if I don't think she's cheating, I'll just give the money back. But he seemed to double down. I guess the most controversial take that I guess I'm making is I still don't think that she misread her hand, but that doesn't mean anything. I mean, it doesn't mean, like I said in the video, like if she just said at the time, oh my God, I thought I had a 3, this wouldn't even be an issue at all. So it's just really, really strange. It just adds a little bit of haziness. But every other thing that I saw from that night, and I said this immediately, was like, she doesn't know what the cards are. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that, when people, if something was going that was, that wasn't straight, it doesn't mean that they always have to go Mike Postle-esque, right? Where they see every hand. But it was very, very obvious to me that she was not playing Mike Postle-esque. Very, very obvious to me. But again, like I just, John S says there's 0% chance that she misread her hand. I agree. People are saying she didn't misread her hand. But again, I mean, that's just a thing where I think either she was told by somebody that it would look better, or she thought that it would look better herself, because I just still can't believe that you would have to be so green to the game to be in that situation and not realize, like if you actually misread your hand, to not realize that it was such a big deal at the time that you didn't say something. So if I don't believe that, then I wonder, why is she saying that? And that's why I said in the video, if she didn't say that, I'd be sort of more on her side. And I am on her. I'm leaning towards the non cheating side. But like I said at the end of that video, on the Twitter video, I'm hoping that really good things come of it. I meant to say too that I am not entirely impartial in this. It's good for my business if there is no cheating. I meant to say that and I forgot it in the beginning. It's actually really good for my business if there isn't, right? I don't want impropriety in a live stream. That was the whole thing with Stones. But the good that I think will come out of this is that, like, I really do think, and Ryan or Nick are the guys that will do it, that like this might be the real kick in the ass that live streams need, especially the ones that play like in big games where somebody comes up with like a certification process, or a company comes around and is like, if you want to run big games on live streams, these are the things that you need to do. You need to get a quarterly audit. You need to go through these protocols and these procedures to really, protect the game. So if it was accidental that this gave all live streams a kick in the ass, then I'll be it, right? So anyways, that is going to wrap it up for us this week. I do not know what's going on. Sam Gibson, I don't know what's going on with Garrett. I just think it's, as I said in the Joey podcast too, like, yeah, the fact that he thinks that she cheated 100% weighs a lot. I mean, it means a lot. It's kind of like the Magnus Carlsen thing, right? Totally out from left field. I was entirely expecting him to sort of go the opposite direction. So I don't know. I don't know if he has something. It's just really, he's not in a good spot in terms of how to manage this. Who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? Whole thing is crazy. But thank you guys very much for joining me. And we'll be back. If you do want to submit your hand, take a look at the link in the description. Thanks again, Mike G. Thanks to Squish My Tomato. Thank you, Nate, everybody else joining me. And we'll see you guys next time.